Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Liverpool show on Football Talk Podcast. My name is Ozzy, and I'm your host for this evening. Now, yesterday we did the match review of Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool, and one thing that I'm sure a lot of us would have noticed that, especially this season, our wing play has, for me, declined in terms of effort and output. So I thought let's do a dedicated show where we actually assess the performances of our wingers and see how it compares to other profiles in Europe that have been linked with a move to the club, but also profiles I feel like the club should be looking at, as I personally believe that the wing areas in terms of left wing and right wing need to be upgraded this summer. So there'll be a lot of players to talk about, so bear with me, but it should be a fun show nonetheless. So let's start with the first player. So the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to categorize it as potential replacement for specific players. So the first one would be Gakpo. So that would basically mean that we are looking at a high profile replacement, in my opinion. Now, in terms of his performance so far this season, he's played 34 games, which is a very, very large amount of games there in comparison to the other players that we'll talk about today. He's got 7 goals and 4 assists in all competitions, which is about 1 in 5 and 1 in 8.5 in terms of assists. So not the best of stats, but that's probably one of the reasons why I believe that we should or we need to upgrade on Gakpo next summer. So let's have a look at potential targets. I'm sure if you guys follow the channel, you won't be surprised by the first person because this is a player that I really want to see at Liverpool, and that is Bradley Barcola. So, in terms of his performances this season, he's played 29 games in all comps, 8 goals and 5 assists. Now, in terms of where he's predominantly played this season, he's actually played left wing for large parts of the season. So he's played 24 games there, and he's notched up 7 goals and 5 assists. He's played right wing 3 times, and he's played up top once as well. So he's predominantly a left winger. Now, in terms of his end product, his finishing, I think can be a little bit inconsistent. Hence why Luis Enrique actually mentioned it in the recent press conference that it's an area that he needs to improve on, which I agree. I feel like once he gets that calmness in front of goal, I feel like he could be a lethal attacker and could be one of the best in Europe. I feel like he's that good. He's got everything in his locker in terms of his dribbling, his skills, him driving the ball very direct on the wings. So he would be an asset for most teams, in my opinion. So that's why I feel like a profile like Balcola would fit the bill, and I also think that he would be an upgrade to Cody Gakpo, who, unfortunately, in my opinion, is very predictable and has one move where he's on the left wing, cuts in and tries to shoot. Whereas Bradley Barcola, he can go inside, he can go on the outside and cause havoc, whether it's one, two, three players, he'll try and take all of them on. So you need that type of player in your team, especially when you're playing against low blocks, which of course we have struggled with quite a bit. When you've got a player who's on the ball and the ball sticks to his feet like glue, he ends up attracting more players than just one-on-one duels. So because of that, those players trying to mark him end up vacating their spaces, and that's where other players in the Liverpool team can exploit. So that's why you need those type of profiles in your team. So he might not get all of the goals and assists, but I feel like he helps players around him in terms of finding space due to players rushing and trying to get the ball off him. So I would say he should be looked at as one of our prime targets, especially as he's not getting much game time at PSG. I know I mentioned, he's played a large amount. He's played 29 games in all comps. That includes substitute appearances as well. But I feel like he's not a main starter. He's always rotated with the likes of Kvaratskhelia, uh, Dembele, Desiree Doué as well now. So, they're all in rotation. So he's normally the player that probably starts on the bench for most games if everyone's fully fit. So maybe Liverpool can give him a pathway to come over to Liverpool and hopefully make a name for himself. So yeah, that's just me, wishful thinking there. But that would be the type of player that I feel like Liverpool should go and try and sign this coming summer. Another player that has been linked with the club for a number of months, years maybe, and that is Andy Gordon. Of course, a boyhood red Scouser. So he ticks those boxes in regards to meeting the profile for the fans, in terms of, having a sort of connection with the player. Like in terms of his performances this season in the Premier League, he's played 21 games, 3 goals, 2 assists, so not very high from Anthony Gordon. Probably would have expected a bit more output from him. But in the Champions League, that's where he's really flourished. And I feel like European teams have not been able to stop this flying winger because he scored 10 goals in 10 games, and he's also added 2 assists to his tally as well. So in total stats, he's got 31 games, 13 goals, and 4 assists. So not too shabby from Anthony Gordon there. This season, he's played predominantly on the left wing, 26 times, where he's notched up 8 goals and 4 assists. He's also played up top a few times for Newcastle, where he's got 6 goals and 1 assist in 9 appearances. So definitely shows you his versatility, because I think at Everton he was predominantly a left winger. That was the role he played most games over there. And then when he moved over to Newcastle, started off on the left wing, but due to Harvey Barnes also being in competition with him, they had to sort of try and fit both of those wingers in one team. So you've got Barnes, who sometimes play on the right, but I don't think he was effective there. So that's why Anthony Gordon was tested, and he was a bit more direct in that role. And now he's added another layer to his game where he can play up top. So a versatile forward. Would he be my first choice? I wouldn't say he would be my first choice. But I think because he ticks a lot of boxes in terms of, being a scouser, being a boyhood red, and fits the homegrown quota as well, he could be a potential target. And if Newcastle don't qualify for Champions League, do not be surprised if we are heavily linked with him once again this summer. So not my favorite or prime choice in regards to bringing him to the club, but definitely one to watch, because I do feel like it's probably a matter of time until he becomes a red, which I'm sure a lot of fans have said quite a bit. Um, for me, I think there's better players out there, but let's see. He's effective in the Premier League, of course. With him being a Newcastle player, he's already got a good understanding with Alexander Isak, as they formed a great partnership over there. So that could be a plus point in terms of acquiring his services and bringing him over to Liverpool. So this one we'll have to wait and see. But is it an upgrade on Gakpo? I think maybe slightly, or I'd say they were on par. Um, but yeah, definitely a player that we could kind of look towards and see maybe he can be another addition. If Gakpo was to be sold, or if we needed to add another left winger to the ranks. Another player that I've watched over the years and I've hugely impressed in terms of how he performs, and that is Kenan Yildiz. This Turkish player is pretty much the wonder kid over there. As he is at Juventus, he's the star boy for the football club. Now, in terms of his performances this season, he's played 25 games in Serie A, 8 goals, 5 assists, and in the Champions League, 9 games, 1 goal, and 3 assists. So in total, 34 games, 9 goals, and 8 assists. So 17 GA in 34 games, which is not too bad at all. The interesting thing about Yildiz in terms of his profile or his style of play is that he predominantly plays on the left wing. So this season he played 18 times on the left wing, notching up 8 goals and 4 assists. But he's also played as a second striker or as a number 10, however you want to classify it, where he's got 5 goals and 5 assists in 14 games. So for me, this would be a very, very interesting signing if Liverpool were to make the move, because he's a player that would predominantly play on the left-hand side, but let's say Florian Wirtz is not available or we need to rotate, he can definitely play as a number 10 in our system. And one thing that probably stands out from Yildiz with the other players that have listed in the left wing or slash Gakpo replacement criteria, he's a proper playmaker. Like, he's got fantastic end product. He can get the ball on the half turn and present a through ball to any striker. That's something he's really, really good at. Uh, probably I would say he's at a very high level, and with more experience, probably get to a world class level in terms of that final pass because he's very very good at that. So he would be a very very interesting profile. I would not be surprised if we are looking to sign him as well. I think he's a fantastic player. The only stumbling block would probably be the transfer fee. I think they would probably ask for an arm and a leg. But let's see. Hopefully, we have some good relations from the Chiesa deal, although that deal hasn't really worked out for any parties involved. But you just never know. Just got a couple of comments here from Double D. Big up Double D as always says, Golden U, LOL. I hear you. But I'm trying to paint the scenario in terms of the stats and what he's produced this season. For me, he's definitely not my choice. I think you know that very well. Um, but if Liverpool are looking for certain profiles in terms of players meeting that homegrown criteria, unfortunately, he will be on that shortlist. But for me, not that player that I want us to sign. I feel like we can definitely sign other players in other positions to meet that homegrown criteria for next season. Yildiz is classy. Yeah, he's a very, very classy player. So I would love to see, and he's very, you know, very explosive on the wings. He's not the fastest, but he's definitely a player that can get past a few players. But then what he has is end product. He's very, very good with his passing and finding that final pass. So for me, he would be on top of that shortlist. I think he's very, very close to even being first choice. If I'm being honest, that's how much I rate him. I just feel like it's going to take a lot of swaying to get him over to Liverpool. But we'll have to wait and see. But this player would definitely fit the bill in terms of upgrading on our left wing position. Another player that I really like, and I'm sure you guys will be aware, is Rafael Leao. Um, in terms of his stats this season, he's played 19 games in Serie A, 8 goals, 2 assists, and in the Italian Cup, he's played 2 games with 1 goal and 0 assists. So 21 games in total with 9 goals and 2 assists. However, this season, he's not played in his primary position, which is as a left winger. That's where he's played over the years. But since the start of this season, he's pretty much played as a striker. 17 games as the man, leading the line. 7 goals, 1 assist, and he's also played alongside another striker as a second striker. 3 games, 2 goals, and 1 assist. So would that be a gamble to sign him just because he's played in a different role? Possibly, but I do feel like the left wing position is his natural position. Although I have said over the years that I do feel like he should be utilized as a striker in terms of his build and the way he plays. He's very direct and explosive, and he can definitely make runs from a central position. So I'm not surprised that he's been sort of converted into a striker now. Um, but what that would do for us, we would have a very direct option on that left wing. So he would be an interesting profile, but I don't know if he would want to make the move over to the UK. I remember watching an interview of his, and he mentioned that he wouldn't want to move over to England due to the weather. So money talks, and maybe that will be the deciding factor. But unfortunately, living in England, you can't really provide the lifestyle that you know the like the Italian lifestyle or the Spanish lifestyle unfortunately presents in this situation. So I don't know if this will be on the cards, but he's a player that I do rate, and I think he would definitely fit the way we play, and I think he'll give us a different dimension in our attack. Another player, Nico Williams. So this season, he's played 19 games with 4 goals and 3 assists. Um, hasn't scored as many goals. In the Copa del Rey, he's played 4 games, but he's provided 3 assists, 0 goals, and in the Champions League, he's not produced any output at all. So 26 games in total, 4 goals, 6 assists, predominantly left wing. He can play on the right wing. I remember seeing him for Spain a few years ago, playing on the right wing and very effective in that role. And even for Bilbao, to be fair, but I'm not too sure on Nico Williams, and I don't want to be rude when I say this, but um, I feel like maybe the ship has sailed in terms of targeting Nico Williams, and he's on a crazy contract, by the way. I think he signed a 10-year contract with the club, so we'd have to pay a huge amount of money because he did have a release clause of around 40, 45 million pounds. That's of course been removed or it's been increased. So I don't think there will be a lot of suitors queuing up due to the high demands presented by Bilbao. So for me, still a good player. I just don't think he's the right profile for us at this stage. Double D's, did you see Liao talking about Jota? So I saw the brief interview that he did with CBS, and yeah, so him speaking about uh, Jota in terms of how he was as an individual, but also when he plays for Portugal, when all the players play for Portugal, they still think about Jota. So it's one of those things where time is a healer, but you can't forget the presence of certain individuals, and that's how the Liverpool players, I'm sure, have been feeling this season, and I'm sure the Portuguese players as well. So, the World Cup's going to be special because I feel like they're going to try and do it, for Jota. So yeah, I watched it briefly, but I'm sure there's a full interview that I'll probably try and catch later on as well. So yeah, nice words from Rafael Leao. And it showed Jota's character as well. He mentioned that Jota would contact Liao and say, "Oh, I want to come to Milan and watch. Get me some tickets so I can watch your game." So just showing his level of support for another teammate there. So yeah, so yeah, very very nice sort of words then from Rafael Liao, and yeah, rest in peace, Jota. So I'm sure you can tell in the interview, it was very emotional, and I feel like it's always something in the back of their minds when they're playing for the Portuguese national team. So yeah, I'm not surprised that that's the comments that he came up with today in that interview. Now, moving on, a player that a lot of fans are like, yes, this is the guy we need to try and get. Especially last summer, I wasn't so sure, and I feel like it's probably with validation in terms of why I'm not sure, because his stats this season haven't been great, to be fair. 25 games in total, 3 goals, 6 assists. And the funny thing about this scenario is that Rodrigo has said that he wants to play as a left winger. That's his role. That's his dream, to play as a left winger. That's his favorite position. This season he's played 17 times, so he's got his wish, but he hasn't been productive. He's notched up 0 goals with 2 assists. And when he's played on the right wing, he's played 8 times there and he's managed to get 3 goals and 4 assists. So I feel like the proof is in the pudding. The left wing is not his effective position. It might be a position that he likes to play, but he's not effective in the team that he's playing in. So maybe he should stick to right wing. So yeah, that's an interesting stat that I noticed today. So for me, I'm not quite convinced that he would be a great signing for us. I know he's got great technical ability. I just don't know if he would fit in well in terms of the way we play, but also the physical and the tenacity of the Premier League. I think he may struggle personally, but that's just my take. I'm sure that's probably an unpopular opinion to some. Now, moving on to the next player is Matt Fofana. And I didn't realize this until I did my research today, that he's had quite a bit of injuries this year. He's had a couple of ankle injuries, so he's not played as many games as he would like. So he's only played 12 games and he's managed to notch up 2 goals, 1 assist, predominantly a left winger. And that's where he's produced his work there this season. Still a good player. I still don't feel like he would make a huge difference in terms of what we have currently. So in terms of Rio, I probably would favor Rio ahead of Malik Fofana, which I'm sure many might not agree with, but that would be my take. And in terms of Gakpo, even though I think Gakpo is very predictable, I'm not very impressed with him. I feel like Gakpo is more suited to the Premier League in terms of his physique and understanding, how to deal with challenges, but also fend off any challenges when he's dribbling with the ball. I think Malik Fofana might be a little bit lightweight for the league, uh, but that's just my take on the player. I do think he's very talented. I just don't know um, if he's the one that upgrades or elevate our game on that left wing. Another player who, to be fair, I do like the look of is Antonio Nusa. In terms of his stats, I was quite surprised that he's not got high numbers. He's played 24 games in all comps, which is predominantly Bundesliga and the German Cup. 24 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. Predominantly plays on the left wing due to Diomande playing on the right wing. So they've got two very good attacking wingers in their team. So for me, in terms of when you watch him play, I feel like he's got an abundance of talent. Injuries have been a bit of a concern for him over the last few years. He was very close to actually signing for Brentford 2 years ago, but failed a medical. So I don't know if that could have an impact in terms of future moves. But I do like the look of him. I think he's a very talented player. And I feel like in a more sort of attacking team that suits his skill sets a bit more, I feel like he could definitely hit a different level. Whether that's at Liverpool or not, I'm not too sure, but I would definitely say he needs to be on the shortlist because he's very talented, only 20 years of age, and still has room to grow, in my opinion. So a player that I like the look of. In terms of stylistically, probably very similar to Diaz. That's the way I would look at it, but probably has a bit more end product in terms of the final pass. So yeah, an interesting player. So if you've not watched him, make sure you check him out on YouTube or however you do your research on players. He's definitely someone that I feel like could be a potential target for us in the coming months and possibly next transfer window as well. Another player that will be slightly unknown to some is Bazumana Toure. So he is an Ivory Coast international. I've seen him play not that many times this season, but I've been aware of him for some time. And I've watched compilations as you do. Very very explosive winger. Predominantly plays on the left wing. So far this season, he's played 21 games, 2 goals, 8 assists, and has played on the right wing, but not as much. So in terms of his style of play, left-footed, but very direct, very explosive. When I say explosive, he's electric on the ball. Um, Great dribbling, great sort of range of passing, can shoot as well. My only concern is I think he will be too lightweight for the Premier League. I don't think um, he would be the right type of signing for us. I think what he would bring is someone that can produce crosses and provide, assists to our strikers because we've got two out-and-out strikers in Ekatike and Isak. So you do need someone that will attack the flanks and whipping crosses inside the box. I think he would be too lightweight. I think he'll be found out very quickly in the Premier League. So I don't think he's the right fit for us, and I don't think he's the right fit for the English Premier League either. But that's just my view on the player. Now, moving on, we're going to highlight potential replacements for Salah. Now, this is not me instigating that I want Salah gone because you guys will be aware he's one of my favorite players. I don't want him to be gone, but I'm trying to assess the squad and feel, and trying to come up with the perspective that do we need to upgrade on these players? If it was my choice, I think I would personally sell Gakpo in the summer and I would upgrade on that left wing position. And in regards to Salah, I think it would depend on what he wants to do. So it would be more so if he wants to stay, I would allow him to stay for another season. If he's not fully committed to the cause, then best time is to move him on now because you'll be able to get a transfer out of him, and then also that money can be reinvested into the squad. But in terms of his stats, there's a lot of noise that he's not hitting the numbers this season. I beg to differ. He's not hitting the numbers that Salah normally produces, but that's Salah's own standards that he's produced over the years. But if you're looking at wingers all over Europe, probably bar one player, which I'll be talking about very shortly, not many have had a better season in terms of numbers in comparison to Salah. So his stats for this season: 27 games in all comps, 27 games, 7 goals, and 8 assists. So 15 GA in 27 games. So that's not too bad, in my opinion. And I just mentioned that there was a player that had really good stats, and um, and he goes by the name of Michael Olise. So his stats have been absolutely phenomenal, to say it is. He's played 34 games in all comps, 13 goals, and 25 assists. So that's 38 GA. So he's got more goal and assist contributions than the appearances that he's made. So that just shows you, how lethal he's been. For me, this is a no-brainer. If Salah was to leave, this is the only player that we should be targeting as his replacement. Yes, I know he's going to cost us about 100 or so million. So be it. But let's put our eggs in one basket and get this fella because he will be the long-term solution for Salah, in my opinion. So there is no sort of second guessing it. This is the one. This is the guy that can replace Salah in terms of producing the numbers, but also being effective on the wing because he loves to take the fullback on. Um, and what's impressive about Elise is that he can cut in and he can be a bit of a playmaker. He can play a number 10 position if needed as well. So he's got great variation in his play. So for me, this has to be our top target if Salah was to leave. Now, if Salah was to stay on, I don't think Salah and Elise could be in the same squad because both of them would want to start. So therefore, if one leaves, I guess Elise should be the first one on the list as his replacement. So that's the way I would look at it. I just got a comment here from Julius Steve. Says, "I know where this is going, Oz. The only correct answer is Bradley Jean Manuel Esoli Sam Bacola. I did not even know that was his full name. But what I will say is, Steve, I spoke about him at the top of the show. So yes, he has been mentioned, and he has been mentioned as my prime target for the left wing position and the player to upgrade on Gakpo in the long term, in my opinion, which I'm sure you won't be too surprised about. So Steve's actually, so you're telling me you're gonna take Michael Agpo Violise over your client Bacola? No, I want them both. Call me greedy, but I want Bacola on the left and I want Elise on the right. So yeah, so I would sell in this scenario. I would definitely sell Gakpo. I don't even think that's a debate for me. And reluctantly, I would probably sell Salah as well if I feel like he doesn't want to stay. And I don't think he's been as impactful this season. I do see there's a slight decline in terms of his level of play. So it might be just the right time to part ways, which is not something I don't want to say out loud, but I'm trying to be as honest as possible. So when you've got those two players, I would like to sell Gakpo, Salah, and if you believe the rumors, apparently Bayern Munich would be willing to spend 70 million on Gakpo. So if that's 70 and you've got 60 for Salah, you've got 130. I'll probably say 100 million will probably take what Elise out of Bayern Munich, and then the 30, just add a few more M's on top of that. We'll get Barcola as well. So that would be the dream scenario for me. And Steve's comment to say, man wants the French trident, Barcola, Ekitike, and Elise. That would be fantastic. For me, that would literally have everything that you want in your attacking players there. So, Barcola, directness on that left wing, Elise, crazy skills, crazy shooting. Some of the goals he scored this season have been unbelievable. And Ekitike, dropping deep to be like a false nine at times, but can also be lethal on the run, and his finishing is getting better and better. So that would be one hell of a trio, if you ask me. But yeah, that would be the dream scenario, if you ask me. Now, if for some reason we're not able to get Elise, which yeah hurts to say out loud, but let's just come up with Plan B. If we're not able to acquire Elise this season, maybe we look towards another target, and that could be Yan Diamonde. Now, in terms of his stats this season, of course, he's not played that many. He's not played in the Champions League, so his stats are based on the Bundesliga and the German Cup. 25 games, 9 goals, and 7 assists. This season, he predominantly played on the right wing, even though for the Ivory Coast, he plays on the left wing. So whenever I watched Ivory Coast at AFCON, he played on the left wing predominantly, but of course was able to play on the other flank as well. And he's one of those players where he's multifunctional, effective on both wings, kind of like what Mane was for us. I'm not saying he's a Mane type of player. I feel like he's slightly different in terms of his approach and his dribbling style. But he can play on both wings, both footed as well. And he's got the techers, very good with his dribbling, can get past players with ease, decent with shooting as well. So the big question is, how much would he cost? Because he's 19 years of age right now, and I think Leipzig would probably want about 80 million pounds for him. So I would probably rather, use that 80 million, add a few more M's on top, and get Elise instead. But that would be my choice. But if Elise was not available for whatever reason, this would be my plan B, to get Diomande in. And the good thing about Diomande is that he can play on the right wing at first, and then when we sign Elise in the future, whenever that is, Diomande can also switch over to the left wing. So everyone's a winner in this scenario. Um, Steve said, Isak super sub. Yeah, why not? Why not? To be fair, both of those players, we have to manage them, especially Isak with his injury record. So yeah, it might have to be where Isak is super sub. But even if you add Isak in that mix with Barcola and Olise in the wings, yeah, it'll be goals galore if you ask me. So yeah, hopefully, it can be that kind of summer. Right now, we're probably just playing fantasy football, but we have to dream as well at times. Now, another player for the right wing as a potential replacement for Salah is Magnus Akuluche. So if you're not familiar with him, do check him out. He's a very, very talented player. Unbelievable techers. Trust me, he's got everything about him. In terms of his output for this season, 32 games, 4 goals, 6 assists, and predominantly plays on the right wing. The only thing with Akuluche for me is that even though he is very much technically gifted, he's not a rapid winger. He's one of those wingers that he can beat a man. He certainly can, but he's more of a playmaker type of winger rather than an out and out winger. So for the way Liverpool play, I would rather us go for an out and out winger. But having said that, Salah in the last couple of years has played more as a playmaker on the right side. So if they want that similar type of profile, I think Akuluche can certainly fit that bill. So one to look out for. He was very close to moving last summer. I think PSG were in the hunt to sign him. I think they viewed him as a potential replacement for Barcola, who was of course being linked to moves away from the club as well. So if you're not familiar with him, do check him out. He's a very talented player. Would he be my first choice for the right wing position? No, but he is nonetheless a very talented player. I would just rather go for an Elise or Diamondo who are a bit more explosive. And I feel like in this team, we need pace on the wing. So I feel like that is a mandatory requirement when we acquire new wingers in the upcoming window. Now, I've presented the slide as replacements for Rio/Chiesa. So the reason I've done that is because I personally wouldn't sell Rio. I know the whole show is that, upgrade on our current wingers. But Rio is a player that I feel like has a big future at the club. The only thing with Rio is that if he's not going to be given game time next season, then I feel like he needs to go out on loan. And he actually made a comment. I don't know who he had an interview with, but I saw something online where he said along the lines that he wants to play, whether it's Premier League or whether it's for the under 21s. He just wants to continue playing and evolve. So it already shows a level of maturity, but he knows that the more game time he can present for himself, the more he's going to excel and improve as a player. So if he's not going to get game time, or if he's not going to be utilized as an actual squad player rather than a bit part player like that he has been this season, then for me he needs to go out on loan, play in the Premier League or the Championship, whichever competition. I feel like if he can play week in, week out, it will definitely help elevate his game, and I think he'll return to Liverpool as a better player. But of course, that depends on the manager. If it's still on a slot, then maybe a loan move will be on the cards. If it's another manager, then maybe Rio Ngumoha has more of a future than he realizes, and maybe he'll be utilized a lot more. I'm not saying he'll be the first left winger on the team sheet, but he'll be a player on the bench. He'll be a player that will rotate with the left winger. Now he's shown another layer of his game that he can play on the right wing as well. So for me, you have to have this type of profile in your team. And we know that if we were to bring him on off the bench, he's going to cause havoc. So whether he starts or whether comes on as an impact sub, he's going to be effective. So for me, I wouldn't sell Rio. So that's why I probably should explain a bit more, but if he goes out on loan, then I guess the players I'm going to mention can replace him in the squad. But my personal opinion would be that he stays. Unfortunately, Chiesa, who's the player I really like as well, I think he'll be the one that ends up departing. So players to kind of replace the backup winger position. The first name is Matthias Mane. He's a player that's been making a lot of noise this season. 18 years of age. Um, and so far, in terms of his stats, only played 19 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. And something that I didn't realize until I was looking at his stats, he's predominantly played as an attacking midfielder. He's not played on the wings as much. I thought he played on the left wing and the right wing. He's only played on the right wing twice and on the left wing once, according to Transfer Market. Um, so he's a player that clearly is very multifunctional. Can play in that number 10 role, but can play also play on the wings. So for me, that's a very interesting sort of asset to have in a young profile like that. So he hasn't really found his position. I feel like he's more of a winger, to be fair, and I feel like he's more effective on the left. And I think I think he's a very similar profile to Rio and Ngumoha in terms of how he plays. I think Rio's a bit more direct and is a bit more skillful, but I feel like Mateus Mane, um, could definitely play to that same kind of level, and they can both play on the same team and interchange as well, which would be a very interesting prospect. So for me, signing a player like Mateus Mane as a backup right winger on paper would actually be a smart thing to do. Now, the stumbling block will be the transfer fee. Now, how much is he going to cost? Apparently, um, Wolves want something in the region of £50 million. I think if they were to get relegated, which looks like is a strong possibility, I don't think we'll be paying £50 million. I think we'll probably get him for about 30 to 40. I think that would be the region that will definitely help acquire his services. So he's a player that I do like the look of, and he's definitely one to watch. So, let's see if Liverpool are going to target that sort of profile. I think it would make sense if we did. But yeah, only time will tell in terms of who we end up going for. Another player that some may not be familiar with is Said El Mala. Now, he is a player that has definitely made a wave for himself in the Bundesliga. 19 years of age, plays for FC Köln. Uh, this season, he's played 25 games, 8 goals, 4 assists. So for a 19-year-old to notch up so many appearances, he's someone that is probably very highly regarded in Germany. Not only that, he's probably one of the hottest prospects in European football right now, and he's predominantly a left winger. Not left. Well, to be fair, he's both footed. He's able to play naturally right foot, but he's very effective and can cross and play with his left foot. So yeah, he's very, very sort of an interesting profile. I watched a few compilations of him today, and he's not the most electric on the ball. He's a good dribbler. He's a pacey winger. I wouldn't say he's the fastest or anything of that range, but he's effective in terms of his dribbling. He's very direct, um, and he knows when to shoot and when to find that right pass, despite only being 19 years of age. So for me, plenty of room to grow. I still feel like he's a raw talent, but he's a player that I feel like if he was given the right training and the right guidance, can become a top player for years to come. So if you're not familiar with the name, do look out for him in the near future because I think he'll be a name that will definitely make some noise for years to come. And the final player I'll be reviewing is Alan Ilias. So he's a player that we were linked to a few days ago. Apparently, we have agreed a £30 million deal to get him over to Liverpool. So only time will tell if there's any truth to that. Um, in terms of his stats, not the biggest of numbers, but 11 games, 2 goals, 0 assists, and predominantly plays as a right midfielder. So for me, he in terms of what I've seen in terms of the compilation, very interesting profile, uh, very good technically, good left foot on him, can shoot as well. So he would be a project signing, if we were to make that move. So he would be a player where I don't expect him to be involved very heavily for the first team, but he would definitely be a player that will be in and around the team and will get cup games and a few league games here and there in his opening season. And once we feel like he's, made his move, or once he's gotten accustomed to the way we play and the way that the Premier League is played, then I feel like he could be a player for the long term. So let's see, what type of players Liverpool will try and target. But I do feel like he's a player that can definitely be effective. It would just be interesting to see, where Liverpool's head is at because we don't tend to sign players directly from Brazil. We normally monitor them. We're known as Monitor FC. Watch how they develop at another European club, and then pay excessive prices to get them on board because we realize, oh, they're actually the real deal. So maybe Liverpool have changed their approach, and maybe they're going directly from the South American market and bringing talent over to Anfield straight away. So yeah, let's see, if there's any truth to rumors. But what I will say is that the wing positions have to be addressed, and you know, it, whether you believe Gakpo will stay or not, only time will tell. I feel like this season he's shown that he's not a starter, in my opinion. Would it be an adequate backup? Yes, but I feel like because we've got Rio there, I would rather have Rio as the backup and then have another player ahead of him and then have those two players in rotation. Or if we believe that Rio is the guy to take us forward, then maybe start him from next season. But then, would Gakpo settle for a backup role? I don't think so. And with the salary that he's on, not that it's a factor to us as fans, but from a Liverpool's business point of view, having a player on 200K a week on the bench doesn't make financial sense. So it's going to be very interesting to see what Liverpool do in the summer because it might be where if Arne Slot stays, and look, this is not what I'm predicting, but if he does get given another season, we all know he's probably going to favour Gakpo, and then we might see Rio Ngumoha out on loan potentially. So then we still need to sign a left winger to challenge for that left wing role or provide depth for that role. And then in terms of the right side, big question marks about Salah. Does he stay? Does he go? If he stays, then I feel like we'll look at the profiles of a Mateus Mane or a what's his name? Alan Ilias, that type of player that would be an understudy for Salah. And then maybe whenever Salah leaves, we'll find or we'll sign that replacement right away. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And in terms of Chiesa, I think the future's right. The writing's on the wall in terms of his future. He's definitely gone. Um, so we're definitely signing. For me, we're definitely signing two wingers this summer. Whether people like that or not, that's your choice. But it's an area we have to definitely upgrade because this season has shown us that we've really, lacked an attacking presence on the wings, and that has led to less creativity. That's led to us finding it very difficult to break down teams, especially low blocks. So it is no coincidence that we've struggled from that part of the game, and that's why I feel like we need to change our tune or change our approach next season and go direct on the wing. So yeah, so that's my analysis or my assessment of our current wingers. So if drop a comment and let me know your thoughts in terms of where where do you stand? Do you think these players need to be upgraded, or are you happy with our current four wingers and you feel like time will allow them to develop further? Do let me know in the comments. Uh, Before we close the show, got a few comments here from Steve, who says, "Good evening, bonne nuit to Aussie in chat. Liverpool need to buy Barcola." I'm definitely on board with that one. Elise, 100% on board with that one. Mbappe, nah, we don't need him. Ngog, nah, not Ngog. I mean, Ngog, you know what? We only signed him for like £1 million, so he wasn't actually that bad considering how much we bought him for. But yeah, those were some dark times. Because he ended up leading the line for us when Torres left, didn't he? So yeah, not cool. Damien Placis, that's a blast in the past. I actually remember his debut. It was against Arsenal, and he produced a masterclass performance there. Started getting names. Like, oh, he's the next Vieira. This and that. He was nothing like Vieira. He's just like because he was tall, black, and French. So therefore, yeah, he's the next Vieira. In terms of his playing style, he's a left-footed midfielder. But unfortunately for the player, that appearance, I think he peaked because after that he was nowhere near the Liverpool team. And I think we just moved him on after. So it was a very bizarre situation, unless I, missed something at the time. But yeah, he just became the forgotten man after that performance, which was a bit of a shame, to be fair. Billy Cometti, I remember him, Klopp saying that, talking about his height in terms of, he's a big fella for his age and all that sort of stuff. So we were thinking, oh, Billy the kid that, that was a nickname that he got. Maybe he's the guy for us going forward. Fortunately, that never happened. Florian Cinema Pongo, he was a player I really liked, to be fair. He came alongside his cousin, which I'm sure some of us might not know, but they actually are cousins. And Anthony Letelic. Um, yeah, very, very highly regarded youngsters, and maybe there was too much pressure on them, or it was just not the right sort of setup for them in terms of the league. Because coming from the French league, it's different transition for them. But I like Cinema Ponga. I thought he was a very talented player. Then he went over to La Liga and tore it up over there. Played for Atletico, played for a few clubs there, so he did really well. Um, so yeah, definitely a player that I liked. And Nicolas Anelka. Funny enough, Ponga when he came. Um, he was regarded as the next Anelka. And Anelka was a player that, when he was at Arsenal, I dreamt that we could sign him. And when we got him on loan, I was super, super gassed when we got him. But then I was super annoyed that we didn't sign him on a permanent deal. I think for me, that's one of our worst decisions when it comes to transfer. I think that's the one we should have got overdone. I know there was issues in regards to the agreement. I think his brother was his agent at the time, was demanding a bigger sign-on fee. So he doesn't represent my agency clearly because yeah, he's gonna, he went overboard in terms of trying to get too many paychecks than he should have. So that unfortunately affected the deal. But yeah, I was quite disappointed that they would never happen. For me, the dream was always to see Michael and Anelka together. It happened at a very brief spell. Um, but yeah, that would have been very cool to see in the long term. So yeah, bit of a shame. But yeah, that's definitely a player that I feel like we should have signed on a permanent. We end up getting El Diouf. Probably less said the better. It doesn't what happened there. Bro, why does El Mala look like a Suso regen? Does he look like a Suso regen? I wouldn't say he looks like a Reece. I don't know. I don't see it, to be fair. I do remember Suso, yeah. I don't think he looks like Suso though. Uh, but yeah, definitely not similar type of players, different profiles. Bro, FSG are gonna extend his contract, innit? They're all starting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I think it depends in terms of how the season unfolds. If we get an FA Cup, I don't think that's enough to save his job. However, if we do get the Champions League, which very, very unlikely, but you never know in football, right? So if we were to win the Champions League, he will have to be given another opportunity. Doesn't matter how much we dislike the coach in terms of his character or his management style or his credibility as a tactician, as a coach, however you want to describe it in terms of why you dislike the person. You can't sack a manager who wins the Premier League and then the Champions League back to back seasons. It's not going to happen. So yeah, let's see, how the season unfolds and also, where we finish in the I'm hoping we do finish in the top four. I'm not overly confident that we will just because of our inconsistency. However, we have been a bit more consistent. We've tried to, you know, nick wins here and there, so it's definitely working to our favor. But I feel like let's see, we have to keep going. We can't really, rest on our laurels and think, oh, we're going to just win games week in, week out. It doesn't work like that, especially the way this season has panned out. So let's see. If we get top four or top five, top five might even help us get in the Champions League. But if we were to finish in the Champions League place, last Champions League, he'll have to stay. And doesn't matter how much of a hitter you are, you have to understand the situation. He has to be given at least another opportunity. And because he's got 1 year left in his contract, I believe, yeah, based on your comment there, he will probably get a contract extension after that. So Not what I want the club to do. I would rather us, appoint Xabi Alonso as our new manager next season, and then take it from there. But let's see what happens. Uh, Steve said the talent was his cousin. Yeah, so I remember watching an interview, and I think their parents were, because they came through the ranks where they were both at Le Havre, which is the French club. So they came through the academy, and their parents were speaking, and I think one of them realized that, oh, you're actually related to someone from their side. And apparently they're like long distance, because of course, so they don't clearly look like, do they? But yeah, they're long distance cousins from what I remember. So yeah, bit of a crazy fact there, I guess. But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Shout out to Double D and to Steve for your comments. Appreciate you guys getting involved. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Now, in terms of upcoming shows, I will be doing another show tomorrow where we will be highlighting the midfield. So today, I thought let's focus on our wing positions, but tomorrow the focus will be midfield, because from my perspective, I'm looking, ahead in terms of next season. Szoboszlai is undroppable in this team. He has to start in this team, and based on the players that we have, Szoboszlai for me is the first name in that double pivot. So the big question is, who starts alongside Szoboszlai? Do we stick with the combination of Szoboszlai Gravenberch, or do we upgrade on Gravenberch, or do we sign a squad player so we just have a situation where we manage different players? That's something we'll look into tomorrow. So yeah, another transfer related show where we'll be focusing on the midfield. So make sure to tune in probably around this time, 11:30 p.m. UK time. So yeah, make sure to get involved in the chat. Give me your thoughts and comments, and yeah, we can have a entertaining show together. Um, Steve's like, that's like Kirkers and Gakpo being cousins. Yeah, it's mad. It's mad. They don't even speak the same language. Well, of course, in terms of Talik and Pongo, they both speak French, so that's the common thing over there. But yeah, crazy, crazy, isn't it? But that is it for today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Take care, stay safe, and I hope to speak with you all very, very soon. Goodbye.